In one of the hardest prisons in the United States, Diddy had to adapt to conditions that are the light of the mansions and private yachts that used to define her life. Here, luxury does not exist, and every day is a battle to keep her safety and health. Life behind the bars does not disappear. In her cellar, the music icon only has the basics: a bed, a small sink, and a cold lighting that never completely disappears. Every day starts in the same way, with mandatory tasks such as cleaning her cellar and fixing her bed, far from the pleasures of life that was used to enjoy. Meals are simple, a diet that is very far from the high-cooking banquets that we're used to, although she can acquire small luxuries in prison, such as coffee or sweets. Her expenses are limited to $160 a week, a quantity that is not enough to replicate any shadow of her old life. In addition to physical limitations, Diddy faces a devastating psychological isolation, locked in a special custody unit designed to protect her from external threats. Spends most of her time alone, which aggravates the effects of confinement on her mental health. But even in isolation, Diddy's presence did not go unnoticed among the most attentive. Her fame and the reason for her accusations turned her into a target of resentment and rivalry. In prison, the names do not mean anything. What matters is survival. The tensions in the penitentiary center are palpable. Recent reports suggest that Diddy was a target of comments and hostility by some other prisoners, some of whom see it as an opportunity to gain respect, or simply adjust accounts with the power he represented in the past. For a man who was previously surrounded by guards and a court of admirers, this new reality is a devastating blow. In this environment, even a small mistake may have dangerous consequences. According to internal sources, a group of prisoners would have decided to take advantage of Diddy's vulnerability. In a recent incident, the tensions culminated in an act that left a magnet of the hip-hop, the peyote of emotional collapse. The exact details remain under investigation, but it was reported that Diddy was cornered by several detentions, which seemed to be a physical and psychological intimidation attempt. Although the security staff intervened quickly, the impact of the event left Diddy deeply stunned. Testimonials say that after the incident, Diddy returned to her cell, visibly altered and very afraid. It was then that, according to reports, the man who appeared one day was invincible began to cry, while remembering all the atrocities he had committed with his victims, unable to bear the weight of his new reality. For someone who has always been strong and secure, this moment marked a point of inflection. Diddy's tears not only reflect the impact of the incident, but also the emotional shock of passing from a powerful figure to a common, vulnerable, and exposed person. Specialists point out that this type of collapse is not uncommon in people. As Diddy, they lived in a completely different environment before the incarceration. The lack of emotional support, combined with extreme conditions, can lead to a significant psychological crisis. After the incident with the others arrested, the penitentiary authorities decided to reinforce the protection measures for Diddy. Although her status has already been under special custody, she has now been put in a more restrictive isolation, with limited access to the center's staff. In theory, this isolation aims to protect her security, but in practice, it only increases the psychological impact of confinement. Without human contact significant, Diddy faces long hours of loneliness, a situation that the specialists classify as one of the most severe punishments in the penitentiary system. For someone like Diddy, accustomed to a life full of social interaction and constant activity, this level of isolation represents an almost unsupportable mental burden. Each day becomes an emotional challenge that forces her to face not only her surroundings, but also herself. Despite the security measures, Diddy's presence continues to generate controversy among the others. For some, her status as a celebrity is a constant provocation, a reminder of inequalities that persist even within the prison. The rumors inside the prison indicate that some prisoners, come to a magnate as a symbol of privilege. This recent incident has been the engine behind several veiled threats that led to reinforce her isolation even more. But even at a distance, the hostile environment continues to affect her deeply. Specialists highlight that high-profile prisoners like Diddy face a double threat: physical security and mental stability. The dynamics of power in prison make it so that even such an influential figure as him can be seen as an opportunity to gain notoriety among the most attentive. Parallel to what occurs within the prison, Diddy's legal team intensified her efforts to ensure her freedom. In a recent hearing, a trust package was proposed again that includes 24-hour vigilance and strict restrictions. But until now, the court rejected all the requests. The authorities justify these negatives, arguing that the nature of the accusations and the potential risk of interference in the case make Diddy an unlawful candidate for freedom of trust. This forces him to remain in an environment that, according to his lawyers, is seriously affecting his physical and mental health. The defense classified the conditions of the prison where Diddy meets as human, claiming that her permanence in prison not only compromises her well-being, but also affects her ability to prepare herself properly for the trial. Behind the public icon that projected strength and success is a man facing one of the most difficult trials of his life. The tears shed after the recent incident reflect not only his fragility in the face of the circumstances, but also the harsh reality of his new condition. For someone who has always been surrounded by an image, carefully built, this emotional collapse humanized Diddy before his followers and critics, but also raises a deeper question. What happens when a public figure is exposed to everything that defines her? Specialists point out that this type of experience can transform a person in unpredictable ways. For Diddy, isolation and constant tensions are forcing her to confront a reality that she had never imagined. The incident with the other prisoners not only left Diddy emotionally affected, but also increased tensions within the prison. The guards intensified surveillance in her sector, but the psychological consequences of the event continued to weigh on the magnitude of the music. After the confrontation, the penitentiary authorities implemented new restrictions to avoid future conflicts. However, these measures increased the isolation of Diddy even more, limiting her contact with other people and deepening her feeling of loneliness. Next sources in the case guarantee that Diddy began to write extensively about her experience in prison, an effort to process her emotions and keep focus on her legal battle. However, even these activities have limits, since constant monitoring puts a barrier to any attempt of complete introspection. The isolation, added to recent events, began to charge a price for Diddy's mental health. The sources indicate that he asked her to talk to a prison psychologist, although the limited resources of the penitentiary system make the sessions sporadic and brief. Specialists highlight that constant stress, lack of stimulus, and insecurity can cause serious problems, such as depression and paranoia, especially in people who are not used to such hostile environments. For someone like Diddy, whose previous life was marked by control and opulence, the total loss of autonomy is a devastating blow. Every day, these conditions increase the risk of a significant mental deterioration, something that her legal team pointed out as a reason to appeal again for her freedom of trust. Despite the tensions, Diddy has tried to adapt to the penitentiary environment, seeking to gain a minimum of respect among prisoners, although the barriers of his status as a public figure separate him from others. He demonstrated interest in participating in the few activities allowed within his isolation. The nearby sources mention that he tried to establish a physical routine to keep himself active, something that also allows him to interact in a controlled manner with other prisoners. However, the distrust in relation to him continues to be evident, making it difficult for any attempt to integrate. Specialists point out that, for someone like Diddy, Any attempt to integrate should be treated with extreme care. In an environment where perception is everything, the smallest gesture can be interpreted as a failure or a challenge, generating new conflicts. The story of Sean "Diddy" Combs took a step that few could imagine, being a powerful and respected figure in the entertainment industry. He faced the harsh realities of prison, a place where his fame and wealth have no value. The tears shed after the recent incident not only reflect the accumulated attention, but also the recognition of an unenemy truth. Even those who seem untouchable should pay attention to their actions. Prison does not discriminate, and its isolation is a constant proof of the mind and spirit. Diddy's case not only generated debates about his guilt or innocence, but also about the conditions of the penitentiary system and the treatment given to prisoners, especially those with high profile. It is a reminder that justice is not only measured in the courts, but also in the way we treat those who have fallen. For Diddy, the path to redemption, if it exists, will be long and arduous. His life behind the bars is a reflection of the impact of the decisions of the past, a lesson that has raced beyond the walls of prison. For his victims, this is the moment of relief. Each decision, each testimony, and each proof presented will define not only your future, but also your legacy. For your family and your followers, it is a struggle to keep hope alive in the midst of adversity. The future of Sean "Diddy" Combs remains uncertain, but his story, marked by the luxury, by the fall, and by the struggle, will remain as a reminder that power and fame are not immune to the consequences. Only time will tell if these experiences will turn him into a man, or if this will be the final chapter of a life full of highs and lows. What do you think of this situation? Do you believe Diddy will be able to overcome this phase, or did his story come to an end? Leave your opinion in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to more stories like these. Thank you very much, and see you next time.